Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everybody's Business. I'm your host, Jerry Ross. Everybody's Business is presented by the National Entrepreneur Center, and we're glad you're here. In studio with me today is Rachel Madsen.
Hi, everyone.
Glad to have you here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. The business topic for today I would like to talk about is entrepreneurial vision.
Ooh.
And not talking about my glasses, and correcting my bad vision, but it's that vision that entrepreneurs have sometimes that, is unique to them. It's unique to their background and their skills, but also it's their vision for the future. And so I like to say, when I'm talking with an entrepreneur, I never say never. Because I didn't buy a pet rock and that guy made millions. There's lots of products that I see out there and say, who would buy that? But people do. And so sometimes an entrepreneur has a vision that other people don't have. And that's what makes them unique. And many times that's what makes them successful. So when we talk about vision and entrepreneurial vision, I just want to make sure that people know everybody doesn't have to see it. If you see it and get it and you've done the research, then it's time to move forward, because sometimes vision is not ocular. Vision is one of those things you see in your head and you know it'll work and you have that feeling in your gut. You need to move forward. Everyone can say maybe not a good idea, or maybe you shouldn't try that, or it's too risky, but you've got to trust your gut and you've got to trust your vision.
Yeah, you got to follow through.
Exactly, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurial vision is a little different. Don't be discouraged if people don't get it, but you've got to do your research. But if you have a vision for a product or a service that you know will work, do the research, get help. Don't try to do it alone, but follow that vision, because many times that's what makes it successful in the marketplace. And that is today's business topic. So who do we have coming up as an interview after the break?
We have Carlos Carbonell. He is the founder of Echo Interaction Group.
Oh, right. He's from here in Orlando.
Yes, he is.
And he's very active in the community, so I look forward to talking with him.
I look forward to listening.
I hope so. We can pick his brain together. We'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center has made it easy for you to learn business principles from anywhere, at any time, with NEC Online. As a supplement to all the great resources at the National Entrepreneur Center, you now have free access to over 300 learning modules that you can access at any time. Thanks to the generous sponsorship of Wells Fargo and our partnership with The Lonely Entrepreneur, you can access this powerful online learning platform for free. Learn on your own time and at your own pace. Access product reviews and participate in weekly group coaching opportunities. Right now, the only thing missing is you. So check out our online learning platform today at nationalec.org. That's nationalec.org. Did I mention it's free?
And we're back. Today's guest is Carlos Carbonell. Carlos is the CEO and founder of Echo Interaction Group. He was recently recognized by Orlando Magazine as one of the area's 50 most powerful leaders in Central Florida. Carlos is a key player in Orlando's technology, business, Hispanic and LGBT communities, using his award-winning mobile app company as his base to become featured as a speaker at the prestigious South by Southwest conference in Austin, Texas. He's a board member with the Orlando Economic Partnership and an advisor to Orlando and Orange County mayors. He's also a founding board member of the One Orlando Alliance, which assists the victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting, and he is an advisor for Orlando's Regional Tech Association. Carlos says he draws joy from connecting people, especially those who would have had little chance of being connected otherwise. And I'm certainly glad that we connected. It is my pleasure to welcome Carlos to the show today. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning, Jerry.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. And that's not something that we could say every day during these times, right? We have to be honest. And that's important when things are not going great, but a very positive day already.
It is a crazy time during this COVID shutdown.
It sure is. It sure is.
Well, I'd like to start off with what you do and how you got into doing that.
That could be a whole podcast right then and there.
I know.
But it's part of what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
what I enjoy talking about, which is the entrepreneurial path. It's not, look, nobody goes to school, graduates from high school and says they want to be an entrepreneur, right? You don't dream of being an entrepreneur when you're in fourth grade.
That's right. Or an app developer. I think I want to grow up.
Yeah, well, I mean, this you couldn't have an app development company over 11 years ago. So it's just a new economy that has been spurred. And I think that at its core is the whole point of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur looks for opportunity where there isn't one. And that's certainly what I did. And necessity is the mother of invention. For me, and it's very relevant today, but for me, it was the economic recession, 07, 08, that eventually spurred me starting this company. I lost my job. The company I was with imploded. It lost its ability to pay from being a multi-million-dollar company. It's a $21 million company that I was a VP at, and it was slowly going away, fading away. So I had to do something, and I started this company.
We have a saying around here called "In every chaos there is an opportunity," and 2007, 2008 was huge chaos in the economy. And so tell us how you happened upon the opportunity to create your own business.
Well, again, I had to create my own opportunity, create my own job, because it was either that. I was in advertising and marketing. I was digital. I was leading a digital team, doing project management. The company I was with was just getting into doing web work and digital work, and they had always been doing 3D renderings and animations. So I kind of had that background. And when I started the company, it was essentially a digital agency. And we were doing a lot of digital marketing, social media campaign management before, that was a thing. There's a lot of big educational process back then, to explain to people the value of social media.
That's right. Because it wasn't one of those things that people knew a lot about. It was a very new technology, and today we just take that for granted. But at that time, that was very new ground that you were farming.
Absolutely. But we were doing other digital work, creating websites, and then it wasn't just that the iPhone had come out. It had already come out, but Apple created the App Store. So it gave way to independent developers to essentially create software, and in companies centered around that software, around apps, and that was unheard of. I mean, you could have a team of a few people create multi-million-dollar companies, not necessarily overnight, but have that potential. So we actually got into the third-party development and started developing apps for people and companies, and we're very fortunate to have big clients and big opportunities with the enterprise world. So that's where we cut our teeth. And so far, we've developed over 200 applications. So we became really proficient. I always like to say that my team is truly Silicon Valley trained, but we are Silicon Valley trained at Orlando rates. So that became very alluring for a lot of clients too.
That's right. That's right. What would you say was your biggest challenge or your biggest fear getting started?
My biggest fear getting started is still my fear. When you're an entrepreneur, it may seem very glamorous. You're a company owner, but every day you wake up thinking, okay, how am I going to make payroll? Maybe not next week, maybe next month, but even next year. I always think ahead. So what's going to be my forecast next year? What's going to be happening? How am I going to not just survive but thrive? So that's always in an entrepreneur's mind. No matter how much cash in hand you have, you have to be ready. And I think those of us who were born out of that recession time, we did become pretty resilient. But this time right now shows us that anything could happen. No company is too big to fail, and you have to be ready for anything.
That's right. And I have been an entrepreneur all my life. Started one of my companies in the early 90s, which was a recessionary time. And I call it doing the daily SWOT analysis, that I've got to focus on my strengths, I've got to build my weaknesses, but what's a threat that could take me out? And so I think that is one of the things that an entrepreneur does on a daily basis is kind of look around and say, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to grow the business? And I think that's not an event, that is a process.
Right. And with companies in tech like us, I always have to have my mind, my eyes, my sight on what's coming next. So it's not just, again, surviving, but thriving. How do I continue having the ability to innovate? That R&D is taken on by the company. I always have to have time, resources, and the ability set aside to experiment, create, and innovate. And that's not necessarily paid work or client work. So it's something that's self-funded. So that's one of the unique things about having a business in tech that always has to keep up.
You bet. And things are changing quickly. Speaking of quickly, time is going quickly. Carlos, how would somebody get a hold of your company if they're interested in connecting and engaging?
The name of the company is Echo Interaction Group, so they could Google it. But our website is justecho.com, justecho.com. And I'm the only Carlos Carbonell in Orlando, so they could just Google me as well and find me in various social media and LinkedIn.
That's great. Well, we're talking with Carlos Carbonell. We will be back right after these messages to hear his advice to other entrepreneurs who may just be getting started or looking to grow. We'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida, has been around since 2003 and today is home to 14 business support organizations who have a single mission: to help you grow your business. Through free business coaching, low-cost training, and valuable business connections, these 14 business support organizations assist thousands of entrepreneurs each year in starting, growing, and scaling their businesses. So why not visit the website at nationalec.org today, or give us a call at 407-420-4848 to discover how you might take your business to the next level. And by the way, the National Entrepreneur Center is funded entirely through local sponsors, which include Walt Disney World Resort, the University of Central Florida, the City of Orlando, and Orange County government, just to name a few. So let's get connected today and get growing. Check out our website at nationalec.org.
And we're back. We're talking with Carlos Carbonell, an entrepreneur here in Orlando, Florida. And Carlos, fascinating about the tech world and your impact on it here. But I'd like to ask you some of the lessons learned as you went through your journey of being an entrepreneur. Let's start with, what advice would you give any entrepreneurs that are maybe just thinking about getting started today?
Well, this is probably the best time to explore entrepreneurship, believe it or not.
I was going to say, that's a very different approach, because as an entrepreneur, I know that sometimes what people think is a good time may not be.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's not necessarily the best time to start a company full on, but that's why I said explore entrepreneurship. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. And who knows how this podcast will stand the test of time, but maybe just, a historical marker, because, this is quite possibly one of the worst times, economies, everything bad is happening right now, in my opinion. But it may get worse. So everybody needs to have a backup plan. Everybody needs to have the explore the potential for a side gig. And I think that, I'm not, a fan of calling solopreneurship having your own company, but, I think that everybody needs to explore the fact that they could be an autonomous individual. They could drive their destiny. They could really hone on their skills and what they're really worth, and not necessarily be beholden to a company or to anybody else. That said, I think that, again, you could explore entrepreneurship right now to be ready for what's next, because you never know what's going to happen. And another thing, it could be at any age. We're going to experience something that, that's already been talked about, where you're going to have seasoned professionals that are not used to being let go and not being able to find a job. they're going to be faced with the fact that they need to figure what to do. So I do think that that this could potentially be the best time to do that. Now, that said, of course, there's a lot that needs to be done before one actually starts a company. And I think that, it's worth noting that there's probably one commonality between all successful CEOs, I think successful people in general, and that is they're avid readers. They're avid consumers of information. And I'm not talking about just, reading your social media feeds, but there are plenty of podcasts, there are plenty of books. You don't necessarily need to just, consume, business books and that type of material. I think just reading in general just makes you a better communicator, right? And expands your brain and creates that habit that then leads to consuming books related to entrepreneurship. But that's I think also a very big start, a very good start.
Well, with the availability of technology today and the fact that the price has come down exponentially fast, the access to that technology to be able to start a business from home has never been easier. And yet it seems like there's been there's so much information out there. How do you sift through that to know what it is you should be reading? Or
yeah, well, you have to start somewhere, right? And I think that having mentors, I think that everybody potentially has somebody in their life, even tangentially, that they could reach out to that potentially has started a company, even if there's somebody that because that's easy to say if you're in a privileged position, but even if it's your barber or somebody who has started a company could provide you with some advice. And I guarantee you that every single one of those people has had a mentor or somebody that championed them or pushed them, or something that they absorbed and consumed, some sort of information or some sort of advice. So that is a start.
Did you have one of those?
I did and I didn't. I'm very fortunate, even though that my path, I'm originally from Panama. I came here when I was 13, 14. Dad was a single dad, struggled. I always say that he made about $16,000 a year, which is about how much I spend on Starbucks coffee a year now. And he raised 3 kids, but he was never home, but he's always hustling. He was always trying to figure out how could he make money? How could he do something? But back in Panama, he owned businesses. My grandfather was a successful entrepreneur. He owned businesses. So even though my path in America was essentially that of the working class or the working poor, back in Panama, I had that foundation that I saw people who started companies. So I'm fortunate to have that as part of my my lived experience. So I knew that there was a possibility, and I think that that's what people sometimes lack, is that the role models and the possibility that they could do it. So that helped me tremendously. As I went on in my career, I learned that mentor is a word that's overused right now, or used quite a bit, but anybody could be a mentor. A friend could be a mentor. Somebody that you barely know could be a mentor. Somebody who's younger, somebody who has less experience than you, could give you those nuggets and tidbits of information that you could apply. And a lot of times that takes losing the ego and knowing that you always could learn. And you just have to, again, intelligence is not necessarily just degrees. It's just your ability to absorb that information, interpret it, and apply it. And that is not necessarily innate. That's you exercise, you practice that, and everybody could get to that point if they really apply themselves to it.
Well, and I have the benefit of knowing you here in the community, and I know that you are one of those that have mentored lots of businesses and helped lots of businesses. So thank you for paying those lessons forward. Any particular thing that you would say a new business owner should do or shouldn't do? Any mistakes that you made that you would say, whatever you do, don't do that, or something that you did that you would say, by all means, you've got to do this?
I think that somebody needs to, and not to get overly philosophical, I think people need to introspect about their true North Star. What are their principles, motivations for doing everything they do, what they're passionate about, but also how they really treat themselves in the world. I think that, and I just had this conversation last night with somebody, that you may see some successful entrepreneurs, successful people in businesses, that lack ethics, and, probably driven by pure greed. But those that I admire the most have good moral, well, that's a subjective word perhaps, but good moral principles. Ethics are important. How they treat others, how they treat their vendors, clients, employees is extremely important. So I think that, really resetting your values and understanding that they're going to be more important now as a business owner, as one starts a company, is something that really people need to keep in mind. And I think that for me, I'm not saying that from the beginning I had that in mind. I really grew spiritually and emotionally through this path, and I realized that there's something more important than money. I always think that I have my company because my employees have families, and I have to take care of them, of those families. I had to contribute to my community because it's where I live, and without it, I would be nothing. So a lot of the times, those are my driving principles and values, and I think that just, not just peripherally makes me, have a modicum of success, but I think it, makes me happy and makes me experience joy no matter what's going on with my company and how difficult it is. And knowing that there's going to be those ups and downs, I think that people need to, really introspect about that prior to starting a company.
And I think if you have that...
I got really philosophical there, but...
No, thank you, Gandhi. No, that's right. But I think you're right in that once you have that guiding North Star or that basis, we all know that things are going to go right, things are going to go wrong, economies are going to go up and down. But if you have that true North Star, you make it through those storms, and that keeps you on the right path of doing something that is a motivation more than money. We're going to come back and talk to you about COVID-19 and how that's affected your business and how you see that affecting the business of the future. But for right now, we've got to take a break and hear from one of our sponsors. So don't go away.
The Pride Chamber is Central Florida's LGBT Chamber of Commerce, dedicated to the business equality movement, formerly known as MBA Orlando. Our name change was necessary to reflect on the organization's makeup and mission. As one of the most progressive areas in our state, we at the Pride Chamber push for change in the workplace for all our community members. Until everyone is treated equally and has equal opportunities and protections, we have much work to do. Our efforts are achieved through events and member initiatives aimed at recognizing and promoting LGBT-owned businesses and bridging the gap between our community and our local business ecosystems at large. Named the nationwide 2017 LGBT Chamber of the Year, we are one of 5 like-minded chambers in our state, and we are proud to be the voice of the LGBT business community here in Central Florida. We are all stronger together, and it is through equality and inclusion we can contribute to building a more equitable future.
Now, here is your host, Jerry Ross.
We're back. I'm Jerry Ross with Everybody's Business here from the National Entrepreneur Center. We're talking with Carlos Carbonell, and we're going to transition to talk a little bit about the current events of today and the last 6 months, COVID-19. Carlos, how has that affected your business? How have you pivoted, and what do you see as coming out of this, the business, and how that'll affect business in the future?
I think every single business has been affected. Look, maybe some positively, but every single business has been affected. So I don't have that ego to say that, everything was fine, from the beginning. I think the beginning of the pandemic was extremely disconcerting and difficult, especially because, part of our company culture is to be high on empathy. And, we saw a lot of our clients suffer. There are a lot of project postponements, cancellations, which of course affected us. This was really going to be and forecasted one of our best years, and it's really turned out to not be that. And it was difficult. We did benefit from, from grants and loans and PPP, and that helped tremendously. That actually was going to be total endorsement, but partly in thanks to mentors, because initially I felt odd and weird taking something that maybe was necessary and needed for other companies, and perhaps not needed. But also I need that cushion. Everybody needs that cushion. It would be silly not to go after that. But also I have built good relationships with my bank, which is something that I advise every entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
I bank with, and I bank with a local bank, Fairwinds Credit Union. They're also a client, but I know a lot of people there, and they really helped me kind of sail that through. I really feel my heart aches for those entrepreneurs that didn't have those connections, those small businesses that had to go through portals and get on queues and perhaps not get the money. But all that, going back to how this has affected me, I think it affected me emotionally. I think that, as an entrepreneur, we have all these undue stresses, but, to have this pressure that, you don't know, there's the uncertainty, even if you're extremely diversified, every single industry, if you're a client-based, service-based company, every single company was affected. So therefore you were affected. So it was really difficult. I had to really be in the right mindset to make right decisions. Also be very cognizant that my employees were also undergoing all their stresses, not necessarily professionally. And that was extremely difficult and weighed on me quite a bit at the beginning. But we're thankfully at a good place right now. And also, thankfully, we not only develop mobile applications, but for about a year and a half, we've been building a platform to rapidly deploy augmented reality enabled applications. So I'm a big champion of XR, stands for extended reality. And really, my goal is to make Central Florida the hub for extended reality and the simulation industry applied to the private industry. And that really opened a lot of doors. But we noticed there was a month where we probably had more leads and more people come to us than any individual month pre-COVID. And again, I attribute it to XR and our abilities there, but also because everybody was looking to pivot. Everybody was looking to see, how else could they apply technology to help their companies.
Right. I think you hit on a key word there, uncertainty. That we started this pandemic saying, maybe it'll be a couple of weeks, maybe it'll be a month. And when that stretched into multiple months, the uncertainty of how it was going to affect people, that sometimes people would go into the hospital and say, I'm healthy, I'm happy, and they were passing away. And so there was an uncertainty about how it was going to affect different people. And so entrepreneurs and business owners don't do very well with uncertainty. We like to know, what it is we're shooting at. And so I think you're right that there was a lot of stress just with the uncertainty of the unknown, and entrepreneurs had to pivot. I also think, like you said, that everyone was looking for, okay, this is going to go on for a while. So how are we going to adapt? And I think augmented reality and XR is going to be part of the business of the future. What do you see business doing in the future that will be carried forward from the COVID, and what do you see that might go away?
Well, the easy answer to that is work from home. But I think that this has opened the door to not just exploring that, but to perhaps make that permanently, to have teams that work from home as permanently as possible. But I think there's going to have to be many adjustments to the future of the workplace related to how the offices are configured, but also the times that somebody goes physically into an office. Prior to COVID, it was already found that one of the perks that employees liked the most was that flexibility. The ability to work from home when they needed to. Now, of course, there are people that are probably sick of working from home, so you have to mind that. But I think in the future, things will change, and once we have a vaccine. But I think the fact that employees like working from home, are potentially as efficient working from home, it saves the commercial real estate cost, and it gives people the ability to also have people work that are not in your traditional urban centers. So it expands your talent base, or the ability to acquire talent. I think that those are all going to be transformative for the future of the workplace. But I think that some smart companies are applying this today. But I think entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, the ability to think like an entrepreneur, pivot quick, use lean startup methodology, agile methodology, as it applies to developing new product, is something that more and more companies are going to adopt, because you can't really steer a big ship very quickly. But you could have small little dinghies that are able to just move and navigate the waters and find a clear path to safety. And I think that is something that is going to be more prevalent. Companies are going to be exploring it. There's also the potential that companies are going to establish innovation task force that are going to understand that you can't be conservative. You have to really see how much change you could enact as quickly as possible. But companies and individuals that are too process oriented, because that's not how startups work, at least at the beginning. Companies that could just lose that old process very quickly that are going to be able to survive.
And I think that's one of the things that will come forward from COVID, is that a lot of folks were forced into accepting the technology solution of Zoom or WebEx, where before they used to say, I want to come in and meet with someone face to face and share documents. And now we do that remotely without thinking much about it. And I think that's something that will be carried forward. And again, will make it much quicker to pivot, and the processes of the past will have to go away, just simply because of the speed of innovation.
Absolutely. And then from a technology standpoint, I'm not saying that I'm a soothsayer and the best futurist out there.
Oh, come on.
We got into social media before most people were into social media or applying that.
Before it was cool.
Yeah. Same with mobile application development. But I think that extended reality, which encompasses virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality, that is going to be transformative to our behavior, which again, those two other technologies that I mentioned completely transform our behavior. So I think that this is a technology that even if a company doesn't believe that it applies to them today, it will 100% apply to them even tangentially in the future. And this is the near future. I'm not talking about 5-10 years. So I think that is something that people need to start exploring and seeing how it applies, even if it's for training and education internally. It really is going to have a major impact in the workplace, in the way that we do business, in the way that we interact with each other, and the way that we shop, and interface with the world in general.
Well, we're going to take another break and hear from one of our sponsors. But when we come back, we want to learn more about you. So we're going to talk about your life journey when we come back. So don't go away. As we go through this year of the pandemic, many of us thought that would only be maybe a few weeks, maybe a month. But now that it's gone on for months, people are realizing that maybe we're not going to be doing business the way we used to. Maybe business has changed forever. Whole workforces have pivoted to working from home. Schools closed, businesses closed, live events canceled. COVID-19 has pretty much turned our daily lives upside down. Dealing with a global pandemic has also made us rethink how we do everything. Schooling our children to serving customers, it's difficult. Any kind of change is difficult. But when you add to that all the uncertainty that comes with an unpredictable virus, a virus that could be fatal, it's no wonder that folks are feeling a bit stressed these days. So if you are feeling stressed right now, it's okay. You're normal. What you need to know is that you're not alone. Most everybody today is feeling the stress of the situation. Maybe in different ways, maybe with different circumstances, but believe me, everyone has been affected. It's okay not to be okay right now. You are allowed to take time for you, to regroup, and to recharge. I think there are some aspects of what we've found from working remote that are good. That we've learned to use different technology. We've learned new ways to stay in contact with each other and with our clients. And I think even when things do get back to normal, whatever normal may be, that we'll find that some of these aspects of technology and video conferencing, online learning, all of those things will be carried forward into the new way of doing business. Remember, in times of chaos, there is always an opportunity. And we're back with Everybody's Business. I'm Jerry Ross, your host, and we're talking today with Carlos Carbonell, a local entrepreneur. Carlos, before we get to your background, is there any one thing that you would like to see in the business community or happening in our community?
Yes, for many years I've been passionate about connecting large businesses, corporations, enterprises with small businesses, primarily in tech and startups. But I think that is more necessary and more true today when, even you said it, Jerry, when just one order could make a company survive and get through this. So while we talk about loans and PPP and all those things, I think that, large enterprise could be transformative regionally in the economy if they help continue having those whether they're service-based companies or startups, giving them that chance, having companies pilot the products that they're pivoting into, or just purchasing their product, committing to purchasing from local small businesses of any type. I think that's going to be more important than ever. Otherwise, we'll lose our small businesses, which are really large. It's a large chunk of the population that they employ.
Oh, you bet. And many times to a big company, that maybe even just be a small order, but to that small company, that could mean the difference between the life and death of the company. I used to tell my wife, there's nothing wrong with my company or me that a good sale wouldn't cure. And so sometimes that's what those small companies are relying on. They aren't necessarily looking for a handout. They're looking for a customer. And so anytime that you can help by ordering from a small business, and I think we saw that with the restaurants where people were saying, I'll order takeout, I'll do the pickup and delivery to keep restaurants in business through this shutdown. But it's still important and critical and value to the lifeline of those small businesses to just get an order.
And, we were talking about technology and pivots. What easy way to explore a pivot than to pilot something that a small business has created, a small tech business or a startup. There's potentially ways to mitigate risk and still negotiate it in a way that's going to be beneficial to the small business and also extremely impactful to the organization. But enterprise is now set up to product develop sometimes in certain areas. So partner with a small business and accomplish that. So I think that I'd like to see companies be less conservative in that sense, and but have a little bit more faith in those small businesses and change the processes in which they procure that.
So you heard it first here, big businesses. Show some love. Place an order with a small business and do that locally first and then nationally so that we help protect those small businesses that built the country. What I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about you, man. Where are you from originally? You said Panama, is that correct?
Yes, I was born and raised in Panama. I left when I was about 13, 14. There was a dictator at the time, so we left and we're exiles here officially and moved to Miami. Grew up there and then went to Gainesville, graduated from University of Florida, and then here, Orlando.
So you are a Gator.
Go Gators.
And then when did you come to Orlando?
1999.
99.
So it's been quite a ride and quite a long time.
So as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I was one of those weird kids that stuck to a silly pipe dream for way too long. It probably wasn't until I moved to America that I still thought that I was going to be a paleontologist.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I used to devour books about that. I explored, how do you become, a paleontologist? What do you have to do? Where do you go? I was just obsessed with that whole concept and notion.
Was that something that you studied in college?
No, I took my first programming class actually back in Panama, which was extremely fortunate as a special program. So I did have a love of, technology and what was new and gaming. And I think that gave me that foundation to not be scared of technology. My grandfather was an engineer, several engineers in my family. So I actually studied civil engineering and I dropped out my senior year. But I was putting myself through college, so I really thought I needed to, get some sort of degree or piece of paper, at least. So I went back and I think that's when I realized that I could do business development and sales, as a fallback, because I talked myself into the advertising program. I spoke to the dean, Dr. Persani, great guy, no longer there, and for about 2-3 hours, told him my life story, and he made me exempt for the whole program basically. So I was able to finish in about a semester or two, and I got the very unique degree of a bachelor's degree in advertising with an outside concentration in civil engineering.
And that's one of the things that makes you unique is you say, I'm pivoting as I'm pivoting.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's during that period of time that you do have someone that sees something in you and reaches out and guides you. I had one of those that I always got in trouble for talking. I always got in trouble for thinking up new ideas. And it took someone to say, I think you're an entrepreneur. And I had never considered that before, but that's helped guide my education into that. So I'm thankful for those people that speak truth into your life.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's, you just hit it on the head of the nail. Somebody sometimes has to tell you that you can't be an entrepreneur. It's not necessarily going to be born out of you. But what I do want your audience to know is, whether you're a, middle-aged white guy, tired of life, with an ex-wife and a new wife and kids and commitments and a dead-end job that they hate, and they think that because they're 51 years old, they can't start a business. Not true. You can start a business at any age, anytime. And I think that's what makes America amazing, is that you can explore these opportunities and perhaps have less of a roadblock than in other countries. And I have that perspective, but I'm also not blind that there are communities where that is a little bit more difficult. And as a openly gay, Hispanic immigrant who grew up poor and now owns a business, I think that should show that anybody could own a business. But I think that the communities that I just mentioned sometimes don't have those role models, sadly, and that's what we need. We need more role models from communities that don't traditionally start businesses, in order to spur entrepreneurship in a country. You take Hispanics, for example, and they actually start companies at higher rates, but they don't necessarily run scalable companies or have that guidance or mentorship to make sure that their companies are going to thrive or grow past that first million. And you have a huge segment of the population that doesn't even have those mentors or role models who start companies.
That's right.
The same thing goes with African Americans. The same goes for women and LGBTQ people. So I think that's something that we need to pay attention a little bit more. That this is the new majority, all these minorities, and they are going to be basically the largest part of the population. And if they're not starting companies, then we're not going to be doing well as a country. Our primary product is innovation. That is what America is good for, and good at. And I think that we need to find ways to continue to spur that.
So if you are out there thinking about starting a business, if you're in a business and looking to grow that business, you don't have to do that alone. There are resources around the country, your local small business development centers, your local SCORE chapters, the SBA's national website at sba.gov. And always you can connect with the National Entrepreneur Center at nationalec.org to connect with those business support organizations. And most of them provide free coaching. That's the F-bomb that I like to use, free. And that's music to my ears as an entrepreneur. But those free services are provided through people who are experienced and are able to help you not only scale your business, but also to get your business started with a business plan, to talk you through it, because sometimes you need someone outside your circle. So wherever you are listening to this, find local support. Don't try to do this alone. Before we wrap up, Carlos, I need to talk to you about some really important information. And I need we're going to call this the final rapid response bingo. What is your favorite dessert?
I don't like sweets.
You don't like sweets? Okay.
Don't like sweets. I hate chocolate, but I like a lot of Hispanic desserts. Tres leches, flan.
Flan? Yeah. Okay.
Tres leches. Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
I'm a huge fan of Pulp Fiction, Never Ending Story, completely separate genres, but I could watch those movies over and over again.
Sure. Coffee or tea?
Both.
Movie or book?
Both. But I do like reading. Again,
Yeah.
going back to reading, I think it's extremely important. I'm at 16, 17 books so far this year, which I hope to double before the end of the year.
I see you're breaking out in a sweat. You don't know what I'm going to ask.
No.
Favorite TV show?
Oh gosh, Law and Order.
Law and Order. If you're going to go on a vacation, do you go to the beach or do you go to the mountains?
Beach.
Ballet or opera?
Neither, but I support both.
Very diplomatic. Very diplomatic. Beer or wine?
I don't drink. Neither, but I support both.
But I support both. Any final words for our listeners?
Again, find the inspiration from within or through others. But just think of this. You can start a business. Don't anybody tell you otherwise. Everybody could start a business. Even if it fails, you could start a business.
Well, I want to say that I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you taking time to be with us today and for what you do here in the community. So we're going to wrap up. We'll be right back with some final thoughts.
If you have a business question that you would like to have answered, or if you would like to suggest a topic for discussion, we would love to hear from you. Just email Jerry at hello@nationalec.org. That is hello@nationalec.org.
And we're back for final thoughts on everybody's business. Today's final thought, I think, reminds me of the Nike commercial that says, just do it. We were talking during the interview about anybody can start a business. And this is, while it's a difficult time, it may be a perfect time for starting a business in that technology is available, technology is affordable, and with everyone, in the shutdown mode and staying home, this might be the perfect opportunity to start a business. And so, my final thoughts for today is if you're thinking about starting a business, you need to connect with someone and talk about your idea, but you need to just do it. You need to take the next step, whatever that may be. You don't need to go 5 steps down the road. You just need to take one. But you got to do it, and someone can't do it for you.
Right. It's just like going to the gym. That first day's the worst.
Well, it is the first day, but then, a day or two later when you start to feel sore from being there,
Yeah.
it's really easy to just not do it. And so entrepreneurship that's a great comparison of going to the gym. It's hard. But once you get in the habit of thinking like that and doing it and making the effort to show up, even though you are sore, you learn that over time, that becomes the thing that feeds you and makes you feel better.
Oh,
And
yeah.
more energy and all of those things.
Snowball effect.
Exactly. And so if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're thinking about taking the next step in your business, if you're thinking about diversifying your business, take the next step. Just do it. Take action. Don't sit on the couch. Don't get paralysis by analysis. Take action. Just do it. We'll see you next week. And until then, remember, enjoy life. This is not a dress rehearsal.